We are recording.
Okay. I want to officially open this meeting of the Charter Review Commission Subcommittee on Ranked Choice Voting. I want to welcome Auditor Greg Kemsey for coming and answering some questions that we have around ranked choice voting. Before we get going, I did want to let the other commissioners know. I mean, just to introduce myself to anybody that may not know me, my name is Terry Niles. I am a Charter Review Commissioner for District 3, Position 2, and with us today we also have Commissioner Vendetti, Commissioner Gasquet, Commissioner Harless, and Commissioner Lasher, who are also part of this committee. And I did want to let the subcommittee members know that we did get some recent public comments that were sent direct to the subcommittee, thanking us for exploring this option and in comments in support of ranked choice voting and then in support of the putting it on the ballot for 2022. So with that being said, that meeting I believe will be read at our commissioner meeting next Wednesday. The one that was sent to us, Tina said that would be read there, and people can see that. But I will pass it on to you guys before that. So with that being said, we have Auditor Greg Kemsey, who gave me the permission to call him Craig. Since it is a nice little informal, just subcommittee meeting with him with questions that we have. And so he's here today. And I did send him, just to let everybody know, I did send him some questions that were brought to us from commissioners. And I didn't know, and I was going to refer to him on how he wants to go about that. They're very general questions, and I understand that some of them he may not have answers for, or may not. But how would you like to handle that, Doug? Do you want to just kind of talk a little bit about ranked choice voting and what's going on in the state, and then I can kind of ask those questions, or do you want to? How would you like to do it?
Well, of course, however you'd like to do it is fine by me, but I think maybe going through the questions would be efficient.
Okay. So let me pull them up here. Sorry. Oh, okay. Okay. So some of the questions that the commissioners have asked is, if we do if the county does do an implementation of ranked choice voting, how long would an implementation take? Like once, like there was like a go ahead, like we're going to do implementation, because I understand that involves equipment changes and training and that kind of stuff. As what would be your estimate on how long that would take to implement?
Well, we would like to, as short as required, or we can do it. We'll do whatever it takes. But also, I guess the preference would be to have at least a year to get ready for it.
Right. I've heard like 1 year, 2 years, kind of.
2 years is better than 1 year.
Yeah, I guess before we kind of go through these like specific questions, maybe you can kind of give us a little rundown of like what has been happening statewide, because I know because of House Bill 1156, I would imagine that auditors have been talking about this, right? And they've been discussing, if that went through, what, trying to kind of. Can you give us kind of an idea of what the conversation is like with auditors within our state, and what?
So I have to say I wasn't very closely in. Well, it's such a weird time to be with legislation. I wasn't very closely involved in the auditor's legislative efforts this last session. What I would say is that the interest among auditors is one that if the bill is passed, there is some time to prepare for it. We have had pretty significant related election legislation passed with very short deadlines, and that's difficult. Other than that, the effort's just been to try to get it to ensure that it's doable, and
Right,
we'll kind of
right.
we'll see what happens.
So, with that, and this is probably kind of an opinion, that, you can just go, well, I don't have an opinion on that. But it is a
That's
question
unlikely.
but it is a question that was brought to us. And one of them was like, it was worded around with, if 1156, which is still in committee, doesn't pass, how does that affect our ability as a county charter to be able to put it in our home rule charter?
Oh, so that's not an opinion, that's a legal question. So I have to give my standard disclaimer. I'm not an attorney, don't get legal advice. But
Okay.
With that said, my understanding is that charter counties can have the charter, if the charter's amended, to call for the election of nonpartisan offices with ranked choice voting, that's allowable under the state law and constitution. And that's what
Okay.
almost happened in King County, right?
Yes, King
And they
County,
got
and I
wet
think
feet or cold feet, maybe is a better word.
right, and I think it's still being discussed there. I know San Juan
Too
County.
late. It's not going to go on the November ballot.
Okay.
I'm sure it's
I
still
know
being
San,
discussed, but it's not
yeah,
going to go on the November ballot.
I know that, well, thanks for that info. But I know that I've talked to a charter review commissioner in San Juan who has expressed that San Juan will be putting it on their 2022 ballot. And I think that they worked with their attorneys and auditors around that. But they do have nonpartisan offices, which
Yeah.
brings me to another question.
So I will say on that, I will, sorry to interrupt, but I will say Randy Gaylord, the San Juan County prosecuting attorney, is really knowledgeable about charter counties. He is really knowledgeable. So if Randy says you can do it, I believe it. Of course, I have to check with our own prosecuting attorney's office, but Randy's very knowledgeable about charter counties.
Okay, great. That's good to know. The along that lines is, since we do have two amendments that are coming up to be on this ballot around nonpartisan offices. So I have a question about if we were going to use ranked choice voting for partisan offices in the primary, because from what I understand, there's nothing really out there saying that that counties have to can't use ranked choice voting to select in the primary the top two. So my question around that is, do you see that being as an impediment to getting it going if we still maintain some partisan offices after the election?
And then have those partisan offices, the top two to the general election being determined for those partisan offices by ranked choice voting process in the primary.
There would be change.
Right. The general, of course, would be just regular,
Do I see that as an impediment? If we can conduct a ranked choice voting election, we can do it in a primary or a general. I'm confident.
You could run as no party preference already right now, so you'd have a mix. You have a mix right now.
Right.
You
Okay.
could have a mix, I should say.
Okay, great. That was another question that came up, is if that could be done. Let me pull those questions up again. Sorry, I'm trying to.
It just might, well, like all this stuff, it might require a separate ballot, right, for the ranked choice voting piece of it. So that's all to be determined.
I have a question about that, because I know that there's, we've had conversations with Pierce County, right, and what happened back there. I think that a lot of, do you have any comments about like the cost that they entailed? I know that they actually mailed out separate ballots. which
3 million.
you would
They spent. I think they spent $3 million on that thing.
Yeah, and
Um,
yeah. And I've read a lot about like why that happened, and because it was new, there was a lot of things, like I said, like they actually had two mailings, they had, so that brings me to the question, is one of the commissioners asked, like, is this going to be a huge cost, or do you think this would be a huge cost?
no. So it will, no, will not be a huge cost. Will not be anything near the scale what Pierce County did. And I have to give props to the people in Pierce County who pulled that off, because it was a huge, huge undertaking at that point in time. Believe they're one of the first, certainly one of the first larger jurisdictions. I guess I have San Francisco, but they're among the very first to do ranked choice voting elections, and the people who did that really deserve big credits for that. But no, I don't see this as being a big cost. So our voting system vendor, they need to develop an application of a functionality in the system for ranked choice voting. Probably we can get to that later. So there might be a cost for that. And then there might be cost if we have to print extra ballots or something, that that could increase the expense. But we're not talking about huge, significant amounts of money.
Okay. That's good to know. I have to tell you, I don't profess to know anything about like election machinery or anything like that, but just in my research here, I the thing going, things are a lot different than when Pierce County tried to do it.
Yeah.
That you can do upgrades to machinery, and you can do and like you said, it
Only all that stuff is constrained by the requirement to have it federally and state certified, though. So it's not like you just can't go down to the Best Buy store and buy an app and plug it in.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I have total confidence in our on our election systems here, and you're doing a great job. I mean, I feel like we have a very secure. So I think I'm just going to. These are just some questions directly from some commissioners that are not on our subcommittee that wanted me to ask. So we did talk about costs a little bit, and they wanted to know if the auditor's office has resources, like funding resources, to get those costs, or would that have to be something that would come from the county council, or where would those resources come from?
Well, all the money that the elections office spends comes either from the county council or from jurisdictions for which we conduct elections and voter registration. So it's the funding from the county council is a subject of discussion every year.
Okay.
So as costs increase, the amount of money required to pay for those costs has to come from somewhere. But those are the sources. We don't have any other source besides the county general fund and billing participating jurisdictions.
Okay, and I think that brings me to another question that somebody asked about. They said like the machinery and equipment that you needed when they wanted to know the difficulty level, and I think you kind of already answered it. When you would be running county elections using ranked choice voting, and then other like city and legislative and elections using a regular voting system. So, but I think you kind of went over that you didn't think it was going to be a huge cost and a huge something that would be a huge barrier. The other question that this commissioner asked was estimated savings if we did not have a primary. You're sitting in a subcommittee meeting with a group of elected officials that were elected without a primary. So we understand that that's possible. And so if you were able to not have a primary for our county elections, would you think would be like an estimated savings that you would save by doing that?
So that's a fairly complex question, because if the question is, if all offices were elected, if all offices were filled through the ranked choice voting process, you did not have a primary, then you'd be talking about several $100,000 of savings. If what you're talking about is one or two jurisdictions using ranked choice voting, the overall cost of the primary is not going to change very much at all.
Okay.
The allocated shares to each jurisdiction might be reduced. Well, those jurisdictions that aren't on the ballot because of ranked choice voting, they're not going to have a share of the cost. But those other jurisdictions, their costs will increase.
Okay.
Hope
Okay.
that's
So just having like all of our county elections on ranked choice voting wouldn't, and having no primary for any county office wouldn't save that much money.
It would
You
just
would
shift the
still,
cost to the other
yeah,
jurisdictions.
it's the
Yeah.
state who would be partisan and would have to be picking up the cost if you could ever get money out of the state.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, the state is paying its share of costs now, Doug.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Big,
good.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big
I,
deal.
I have a question, Greg. Did you have anyone challenge the vote counting process this last election? Did you have groups or anybody come in um, to do that? The reason why I'm asking is because some people may wonder, you have a process that's been certified by the Secretary of State to count ballots and the process that you have verified, but then you have this ranked choice voting, which probably isn't in the uh, algorithms of your certified election system. You have to run that second. Would I'm just wondering if that's going to create more angst with some people out there regarding, um, how you coming up with these numbers?
The integrity, the accuracy, the transparency, the accountability, elections administration process, is it
Yep.
enhanced or diminished by ranked choice voting?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
so
I'm just wondering if more people will be coming to knocking on your door complaining about that with ranked choice voting.
yeah, you know, ranked choice voting is going to require voters to have more confidence in the use of technology, to use the word we don't like to use in elections, algorithms, uh, calculations. It's not as um, transparent to voters as the plurality first past the post system. And so, I my understanding is that, so for example, in New York City, that vast majority of voters like the ranked choice voting, but it does require. I think it's fair to say it's a more complex process than the first past the poll system we use everywhere else, and that complexity results in questions. And for those people who are prone to not trust government, I think it gives them another opportunity to cast doubt on the elections process.
So you have to really have a good message to respond to folks. That's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, Doug, can you save all the questions until I get through the ones
No,
that?
that's the only one I had. I was just curious.
Yeah. And then well, that kind of brings me to your thoughts around the logistics and what ballots would look like. Now, and I don't know if you have a lot of, I'm sure that you've seen ballots. I know, like, my whole family lives in San Francisco, and the ballot is very, very simple. It's just, it's a small little ballot, and it's got everybody's name, and you just rank them.
How
And
many how many how many offices was on the ballot you saw?
Well, the ballots in San Francisco, all of their municipal offices are done that way. So so they're very simple and they're not quite as hard as I think people think they are. Um, so it's probably very similar to what Clark counties would look like. But what is your understanding of what a ballot would look like?
Well, it depends on the rules that they're administered under. So if you have 10 candidates and you have the opportunity to rank those 10 candidates 1 through 10, you're going to have potentially 10 rows and 10 columns, 100 spaces. That's a lot of area on a ballot. If you have 5 candidates and 3 choices, 3 rankings, that's less room on the ballot. So
Okay.
yeah.
I know I try to like think back about our governor's race, in the primary, and it looking something like that, where you have
36 candidates, 36 rows, 36 candidates. That's a big ballot.
yeah. So
I trust the wisdom of the Charter Review Commission to not come up with that kind of a rule. A rule that maybe says 5 rankings or something would be, maybe even 3 rankings. Let me
right.
put my hand up for that. 3 rankings.
And to be honest with you, I'm not quite certain, but I think San Francisco does it. It's the top 4. You rank 4, so the candidates will be there, and they'll take your top 4, and that's what they do instead of like that crazy amount. So, but yeah, I can see where that can be a problem. Let's see. The last question, and I'm going to open it up to commissioners is. I think we pretty much covered everything. The last one was just your understanding of what's happening at the state level, but you said that you weren't really that involved with that, and so.
Well, the bill. I thought the bill had a big head of steam. It was moving really well. But then I understand that the fair vote people actually sort of caused it to slow down and stall. So, yeah, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have the fair vote people come and talk to us at our next meeting with some more questions for them. They've talked to the commission before. So, commissioners, do you have any questions for Greg? Or I missed anything that you remember being asked?
I think those were the main things, was like the ballot, the funding sources, and the potential cost, and just kind of talking about that out loud. So I feel pretty good. I think someone else was about to chime in. That was me. I think I mean, we talked about the complexity of the ballot with ranked choice voting on it, especially with very large checkerboard. But with, partisan and non-partisan elections on the same election, how do we properly educate folks on how to vote when, in which portion, and because I think that's really where I could see a lot of confusion is, ranking in the top 2 here, and then ranked choice vote here, and then back to top two, and then here and there and everywhere. That could get quite complex.
I think what you would clearly have, you'd have a separation. You have either a separate ballot that has only the ranked choice voting candidates' offices, or you'd have a separate section on the one ballot that's ranked choice voting offices. So that's an attempt to address the confusion, or the help voters understand how to correctly mark their ballot. But your bigger question of how you sort of educate voters on how to do this is, I think, more challenging. Although I also, voters are smart; they'll figure it out.
Yeah, if the ballot's well designed and is easy to follow, I mean, it should explain itself. That's the ideal ballot design, anyways, is one that doesn't require a whole lot of education.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough to educate folks.
I have to tell you guys, I've seen San Francisco's ballot, and they've had their state elections, which are not ranked choice, and then their municipal elections on there, and it's very clear that now I'm ranking these, because it's a table, and it says pick, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and then the other ones are set up similar to what our ballots look like now. So it's very clear to people, and from my family's experience, of course, they really like it. They were like, nobody had to tell me how to do it. It's like it's like it's clear what we do. And I will do a copy of that ballot, San Francisco's ballot, and send it out to you guys. I think that might help everybody to see how easy it is.
Yeah, I'd be
Yeah,
curious
that'd
to
be
see, Terry.
Do you want one too?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Awesome. They also as far as education, I honestly think it's a good thing that we're considering this for the 2022 ballot, just because that gives us like all that time to advocate, to educate people around that. And it is, I think that all of the commissioners, Greg, have seen the amount of people that are actually writing in and coming to commissioner meetings that are supportive of ranked choice voting. And so there is a huge advocacy. There's a lot of advocacy groups out there that would be, able to kind of help with that, I believe. Fair Vote, of course, is one of them. But any other questions, Dorothy?
No, I think
No?
we covered everything. Thank you, Greg Kinsey, for coming and talking to us. Really appreciate it and giving us your point of view on this. Yeah, I guess my only real question would kind of be more of like what your dream budget would be in terms of paying for that education piece.
Oh. I voters who are engaged and interested get information. Voters who I should say, registered voters who are not engaged, extraordinarily difficult to activate them. We had years ago we had a grant that funded a temporary employee for 6 months, I think, to reach out to the community of people with disabilities, and she did a great job. She just hit the entire community and just worked really, really hard. And this is back when we were required to install what are called disability access units for people to vote independently. And that general election, I think we had 5 or 7 people use those machines. 10 years later, we're having 10 people use those machines. So, if you said $50,000 to put some information out on Facebook and social media, and I don't know where else anymore, probably not wise to spend money in the Columbian, unfortunately. Spend 50 grand to try to educate people about stuff. Probably what you do is a separate mailer. That's probably what we would do, is a separate dedicated mailer to folks saying, hey, this is coming up. This is how it works. And that can be, you can do something pretty effectively for 50 grand.
That's great. That's good to know.
But I should say 100 grand, 100 grand at least.
Oh yeah, we're doing big.
I do want to make sure I don't leave you with any misperception, because currently the Hard InterCivic system we use, the Verity version of Hard InterCivic, does not have, it has the ability to do the first round of ranked choice voting, but any subsequent rounds are done either manually, which is just frightening to me. I don't know how you do a manual resorting of that, or it's been commented to me you could use the open source software that one of the ranked choice voting advocates have as available online, which is also kind of frightening. But with that said, I'm also confident that Harding Civic will develop that functionality for their own version of the software for within the next couple of years, anyway.
Do you know if
Okay.
they are?
What's that, Doug?
Okay, great.
Have you
Well,
talked
I
to
know that.
have you talked to their salespeople or folks that have they indicated that they are going,
You
or
know,
any of the other
I have
companies?
spoken to senior people at Hart about that. They're not willing to make a commitment as to where it is on their kind of product development schedule. But you know what they say is, well, we respond to our customers' needs, and as ranked choice voting is becoming more and more used throughout the country, I anticipate Hart will react to that.
I'm wondering what San Francisco uses and for theirs, but but that's actually more into the weeds than this subcommittee.
Yeah.
Is we're just dealing with the concept, and I kind of trust that should it become statewide thing and people start using it more, that that things will become easier, and
Well,
like you said,
if that bill passes, Hart will have a system, have a functionality. I'm very confident of that. But I will say, this ranked choice voting issue has been around for a few years here in Clark. Actually in the state, it began here in Clark County with Jim Moeller when he was the city of Vancouver, and then went to the legislature. And at that time, I was saying, I'm sure the vendors will create a ranked choice voting capability in their systems. When we did a request for proposals for a new voting system, 4 years ago, and every one of the vendors we asked, can you conduct a ranked choice voting election? And they each of them said, yes, absolutely. And then it turns out that those are kind of qualified yeses. You can do ranked choice voting in Hart, but the second round you do manually. That's not really what we were expecting. So, but I wouldn't advise anyone to vote against ranked choice voting or not support ranked choice voting because of the technology stuff.
okay,
Or the voting system stuff.
that's
good to know.
I do want to tell you that in a couple of city council forums and stuff, I've heard people asking candidates if they support ranked choice voting, and of course that possibility is there for the city, right? So
it's in the charter.
Yeah, so if that happens, if the city council says, yeah, we're going to do this now, then that would be and get you going as well, right?
Yep.
Okay, great.
How's Kim Wyman support? Where's she at with ranked choice voting?
I think like like a lot of auditors, election people, more auditors, election administrators are very sort of wary of ranked choice voting because it's frankly it's just more work for people, and all the uncertainties, and it's been an incredibly difficult year and a half for election administrators. So to kind of, you excuse the phrase, but to pile one more thing on them is kind of not very attractive to them right now. I'm not sure where Kim is on ranked choice voting. I'm sure she would say, if the legislature passes a bill, we'll make it happen.
Right, that's what I heard from people that worked with her office for 1156, right? That was the message I got from them about that as well, Doug. And but that's those are state things. We're talking about the Clark County. So,
Clark County is an agent of the state. So,
questions in relation to Clark County, then we can. Anybody else? Anthony, any more questions for Greg? Greg, do you have any questions for us? Like,
limit the rankings to 3, maybe
3?
4.
You know what? That's good. That's good advice. I also I have reached out, this committee has reached out to MRSC and asked for because I know there's a lot of, like Yakima County has had some issue, was trying to put some ranked choice voting in and those kind of things. So I've reached out to MRSC and waiting. I'll be hearing back from them in a couple of days about like what's happening around the state, and hopefully we'll have more information about that as well after that happens. But other than that,
I will make an observation and a bit of a opinion. I think the Alaska model is really interesting. A top 4 in the primary, and then first past the post in the general. That's I just think that's a model that addresses what some people see as the confusion that voters might face with the ranked choice voting, and achieves a lot of what advocates for ranked choice voting are hoping to achieve. So,
so that's what we would have if we did a ranked choice voting for the primary, and then just had our general the way it is now.
Yeah, for the partisan offices, yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense too to me, I think.
So what it does, of course, is it eliminates the world of 36 candidates.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's a start. And thanks for that comment. I appreciate that, because
it's worth
like going with it too. But okay, so if there's no questions, we're going to, and you don't have any questions, feel free at any time to, because I know I was on the redistricting committee, and with the, when we put that redistricting together to 5, and I really appreciated all your input about like how to do that, like no precincts, and don't break up precincts. So feel free at any time to reach out to this committee and with any suggestions or comments about what we're doing. We really appreciate it, and we're really open to that.
Well, right back at you. If you have any questions of me, any of you, any of the Charter Review Commission members, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to try to respond.
Okay, great. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but we are going to continue and just talk about some things like FAQs that we're putting together and those kind of things.
Okay.
But I do really thank you for coming today. And
you're very welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, y'all. So I guess we have some we have a couple of issues, and I sent out an email. I hope everybody got it. To talk about around this, I think that one of the things that we should talk about is, what we really have to have ready for in a week is our work plan. So I sent out a revised work plan. If everybody could kind of give that a peek and see what they think about it, and see if that looks doable. So I guess we present this is my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we present our work plan to the full commission on the 1st, and then they will give us input on our work plan and what they'd like to see, and that kind of those kind of things. As I told Greg, and as I've told you guys, I have reached out to MRSC, and I'm waiting to hear back from them, because I think that when we hear back from them, we will have better legal questions to give Chris Cook. But I think that how I feel is like, just like Auditor Kinsey just said, there's nothing that says that we can't we cannot use, particularly for our primaries. And I sent out the RCWs around that as well. We can, like, why we can't use ranked choice voting for our primary. And so if you guys could look at those things that I sent out, and then what do you think about like me sending out when I get MRSA, look, I'm a nurse. So we're calling it MRSC, when I get their response, I'll send it out to y'all and see you can see that, and then we can come up with more questions. I really can't think of any other legal questions except for the ones that Chuck put there, unless you guys have something else you want to ask Christine Cook. Does that work? Just those two questions? I kind of feel confident that in the response to that. But Anthony, do you have any other legal questions?
No, looking at those, I think those pretty much hit the main points. I mean, I think there's a lot of nuances within them based on those answers, but until we have those questions answered, we can't really get into the nuance and detail.
Right. Or opinions, people, and those kind of things. But okay, and so that was my questions about putting the as soon as, so hopefully I'll get an answer from them, and I'll just tell. Did you guys want me? Kim? Do you want me to just send it to Chris Cook, and I'll just CC because you guys are on the executive board. I'll just CC you guys on it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll do that when I get an answer from MRSP to see if there's anything else I need her to kind of drill down on. Okay, everybody okay with that? That good? And then as far as putting together the other things on our work plan that I thought that we should look at is starting work. I mean, we do want to. Well, I also wanted to before our work plan's presented, I wanted to get you guys to okay for me to ask Fair Vote to come and answer questions next week. Is that okay with you guys if I do that? Like Doug was here, they can answer some questions as well. I know there was a lot of questions at the commission meeting going, oh, we won't have the resources to advocate for anything because we won't be commissioners and these kind of things. But I think, there's a list of advocacy groups around ranked choice voting that will, and Dorothy's shaking her head, that will advocate for this and do a lot of education. So I think that, I think them coming and talking about that would be good. And then I'm working on some FAQs, and I've actually using them as a resource as well for that, because they nationally have so much experience with working with ranked choice voting and the questions that voters have and those kind of things. And so I'll be putting that together. If you look at the work plan, there's having FAQs, because we have to have the FAQs completely done, and before we adjourn as a committee, to put on the website, should we put this on as an amendment on the ballot, right? So before we adjourn on December 31st, FAQs are there and posted for people to do it. So you'll see that on there. I know that Doug, so the next meeting will be around addressing questions that people might have about our work plan, and a little, I'll have some FAQs in case, and then we can put together, I will listen to this recording after Doug posts it and put together like Greg Kinsey's answers and send that out to those questions. And do you think we should send those out to commissioners or just tell them at the meeting?
I think we need to make sure that before the commissioners here, we need to have a solid package and communication going out, so they don't have a lot of questions, and that they trust the process that we went through.
This meeting is just about work plan.
Yeah.
The first touch is in October, and so we'll make sure that everybody has all the information, like all of it, before the first touch in October. And I'm Anthony and Kim. I'm kind of that's what our work plan says, right? Everything's presented in October in the first touch. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So,
but that's what we need to work on in September.
Before No, I mean, I can send out the work plan. Do you want me to send the work plan out now to the commissioners? Yeah.
I think we need to wait until we go through it and just verify it. Unless you
Oh,
want
the
to do
work
that
plan?
right now. Do you want to do
Yeah,
that?
have you seen it? Yeah. Can
Well,
you share it? Anthony, can you share it on the screen? Do you have it?
Well, we all have it. You sent the email out.
I did. I can't do it on this computer that I have it. Oh,
But we
yeah,
could,
let's go through it.
I just printed mine, so I'm gonna go get mine.
Oh yeah. Any suggestions or any changes? Let me know. I'm not married. I'm married to any of this. Oh, thank you.
I forgot to move everything on my screen.
Huh. That's interesting. I've never seen that before.
What's it showing?
These little what are those emojis? Can you just hit the dot it?
I don't know where you see the emojis.
Oh, maybe
Hmm.
I'm supposed to do that. Okay, never mind. I got it.
I can see your screen, Anthony.
I can, but I can't read it. Wait, let me resize.
You just go to the left side there and you can zoom in and zoom out.
Oh,
Got it.
yeah. I've got big, giant, fancy screen, and WebEx doesn't know what to do with that.
Okay, so starting at the, how do you want to do this, you guys? Do you just want to take a look at it and see anything that grabs you, or do you want to go through this line by line, or how do you want to do this? The first one is just September. We present our work plan, and we amend it as needed after we get commission input into our work plan. That's my understanding of what the process is. And then in October, we do a first touch. And November, we are going to be, we'll update our work plan as needed by what happens, contingent on the election, right? That's why updated as needed. So, and then the FAQs, I've already started those, and that's ongoing work. And then you'll see in December to finalize those for the website before the commission adjourns. And then research, the auditor's office, we just talked to them, MRSC, we're waiting on them. And then the legal questions, I am going to be sending that out as soon as I get a message from MRSC. And then that data will be presented as our first touch presentation with the commission. And then just any kind of follow-up. And then the next line is a review of other county charters. Those charters, I've reached out to San Juan, talked to them. Pierce County, we have input from them. King County, I can reach out to them. I'm not really sure that reaching out to King County and Yakima are necessary. Yakima, there's a lot of information on MRSC site about it, because they are using ranked choice voting to fix a Washington Voters' Rights Act violation. And so it's fixing some inequities in their voting system, and so they are suggesting to use ranked choice voting to fix that. So that's really interesting if you guys want to view it. There's videos on it to get more Latino representation in a county that's like 43% Latino and has no representation. So they're using ranked choice voting in a very good way. I really like it.
Greg,
I will send you the ballot San Francisco ballot. I'm gonna write myself a note right now so you guys can see how unbelievably easy it is. And just maybe we'll use that. And then San Francisco is also a great site if you guys want to see what ranked choice voting education looks like in a really simple form. They have really great little videos for voters and cartoons, and this is how you do it. It's so, it's really kind of cool if you guys want to look at San Francisco's municipal website. Jeff, were you going to say something?
Terry, Greg mentioned about Alaska too, and I think that might be under others that we need to examine. He thought their system was pretty slick, and if they're running it there, and if they have it automated, that might answer a lot of questions. I don't know what system that they use. They may use a different company.
Yeah, I think I had this conversation with people when they started talking about vendors and systems and that kind of stuff, and I understand that and that have talked to Greg Kimsey as well, but that's really too much a deep dive for this committee to get into, like what system that the auditor uses and that kind of stuff. But I will look at Alaska's, and what he was making reference to is, I think something that we kind of proposed is that we have a ranked choice voting around the primary and then and the general, and that's what he said was pretty slick.
So we need to see the law or whatever legislation or whatever election material that they have that describes that. So if that's the direction that we're going to go, we need to be looking at that.
Yeah.
So,
okay. I'll look at that one as well, Francisco, and send you guys like what their ballots look like as well. Does that make sense? Is that cool? Sure. Okay. So Alaska and San Francisco. Okay. And then you'll see the next line is to draft language for continued partisan positions and draft language for non-partisan positions. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about that, because if we go into this, if in the vendor code we end up with both council and executives are nonpartisan, then we would have then I think that the language that we would have in the charter may be completely different than if we had a partisan positions and we were running the primary as ranked choice voting, which you can in a partisan position, and the general as a regular. So I didn't know if the best way to do this, and I want you guys' input, would be to draft language for either scenario and have something.
Yes, I think that would be the best, because we don't have much time in November. We have to have both options there, and maybe there's a third or fourth option. I don't know, but we need to have them all ready to go so that we know what to do when we meet probably later on that first week of November to make a decision.
Great. I'm perfect. Yeah, and I'm perfectly willing to kind of look at it. I do have to tell you that I've reached out to some people involved with ranked choice voting and asked them to work down ballot language. So hopefully that comes in as well.
Terry, I lost you. What did you say? Can you say that again?
Oh, I reached out to some people and asked for help with ballot language, like fair vote and stuff, if they could give me samples of ballot language. And so I want to kind of look at it, and then I will look at San Francisco's charter and their ballot language, and Alaska as well, and how it's described there as well, and look at that. So I'm willing to do that research and send it out to you guys with samples. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I think that's the last two. Can you scroll that up? I can't see the rest of it. Yeah, I think that was it, right?
Yeah, it ends with the public involvement and communications.
Yeah, public involvement. And so as far as these ranked choice advocacy groups, I know there's more, and it's pretty amazing. And I think that we're really lucky to have it. Oh, I think I erased it on that one. But, you know, I have Fair Vote, Fixed Democracy Now!, League of Women Voters are huge fans. And I think that that's a real plus for us. And so I did reach out to somebody from the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center that Dorothy recommended that I do that. I haven't heard back from them yet. And I did that around the questions that were brought forth with implementation. So I'm still waiting to hear back from them, and I'll let you guys know about that. On the survey will probably be going out in November. Is that correct, executive team members? Like if we do a survey and ask about 2022 measures to get public input, would we be doing town halls and surveys in November at the end, like at the end of November, and then just?
Yeah,
I don't think there'll be there'll be virtual town halls probably, but not getting out. So I mean, we'll have a couple of shots at it, and then it's going to be up to after we dissolve, whatever campaign organizations are going to be having to campaign for it big time and have to communicate a lot of these things that we're talking about. But we can, give there'll be for public consumption are what we've done, and so they'll be able to rally on that. So
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So the whole public involvement is really around the survey questions, and then
I don't know. Is it going to be a survey? Do we need a survey? I didn't think that survey was all that helpful last time.
I think it's being I know that on my other committees, the survey is in their work plan because that was, so I think that, right now it is, maybe it'll come down to crunch and then we won't do it, but that'll be up to the executive board, right? Whether that happens, or the communications team, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep
So I'm
through.
gonna leave it right now until there's a decision made by the communications team around it.
I think I'll just say that we have a very short window in November, and to try to do a survey and get feedback is going to be difficult because we don't want to confuse things up to the vote. We got to get our 7 resolutions done first.
Yeah. Oh, Doug, it's not really up to the single subcommittee's decision though.
Right,
So that's
right.
when that's got to be made in a larger setting.
Right. But I want to share it with my fellow commissioners.
Right. So for right now, I'm going to leave it because that's been our process, and I'll leave it there. And I'm sure when we go through work plans, because it's on every single work plan of the subcommittees that I'm on right now.
Sorry, just to interrupt one last time. I just pulled it up, and yeah, it's on the primary work plan that we approved by the full commission in November. It's surveys and town halls. So since the language is in there until the work plan is changed by the commission, then I think it's worth us keeping it as well.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
I think we need to discuss that some more.
Okay, that's about it. Is there anything that you guys want me to add to that, or?
I think you did a really great job outlining it on the steps we need to take, and a lot of these we've already you've gotten started, so that's a really good place to be.
I feel like we're staying on. I want commission in 2 weeks to think like, oh yeah, you guys are staying on track. You're going to be able to get the work done, and that's really kind of like what I want to impart at our September 1st meeting. Is that And I really enjoyed this meeting with Auditor Kinsey. I think it really kind of helped me a lot. Anything else, Doug, about that? Doug, do you have any other thing about the plan?
No, my comment was on survey. I just don't see how it could happen so fast. to make our decisions. I think we
Okay.
just have to town halls. It's realistic.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and, so the next meeting, I'm inviting fair vote. And then I will have some examples of, try to have some examples of ballots. And if we get to that, we can do it and also have some FAQs for you to look at. Because I think that might help with our September meeting as well. And, since we have, these are weekly meetings right now, because this is a kind of a, I think it's a very important issue, and it does have, there's a lot of education around it. So, after that, we'll start looking at actual ballot language and what that looks like, explanatory statements and those kind of things. And has done a lot of work on that, so I think that we're ahead of the game there as well. Is anybody else anything? Are we done? What time is it? Oh, it's 6:05. Yeah. Oh, so if there's nothing else, then I'm going to go ahead and set that up.
Perry,
I can really enjoy researching interest voting. So looking at Alaska's and San Francisco's and bringing that is actually starting to be kind of fun for me. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'll send all that out to you. What was it, Doug?
well, I was just going to say that I know we're having weekly meetings. I will be out of the area for a few weeks in September, but I could still, I'm assuming, be able to continue to host the meetings and move the meetings forward if I have good internet connection.
Grab that.
But I may have an issue when I get there. I don't know if I get there.
When are you leaving?
The 3rd of September.
The 3rd. So if something happens where we need to, Anthony, do you have the ability, do you have WebEx access?
I believe I do. So before the day comes, I'll double check on that.
I think everybody has access to set up a meeting.
No, they have to actually give it to you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So we have Anthony and Dorothy that can take over if for some reason you get into a place to it and can set up a meeting link.
I may just be on the phone or something like that.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's it. And unless you guys have anything else, I think it was a really good meeting. Thank you, everybody. I'll just call this meeting adjourned.
I'll turn off the recording. I've stopped the recording.